Well, I personally think what I go through is really, really fucked up. And the purpose of this channel and all of the research I've ever did, I needed to understand what the fuck is going on. This is shit that WikiLeaks won't reveal. But it's extremely important that you understand what is being done to you, the financial cost to it, and there's nobody reporting it. So the WikiLeaks won't even let you know about this. But if you want to know how fucked up your world really is, and how this system is fucking up every single person's mind, here's the lowdown. But in order for me to say that, I gotta say what my life experience is. And I happen to have people in my life that I love, that I don't want to talk about their lives, but the only way you can understand this is through my experience. So it's like, I gotta tell my story. So I apologize to everybody that is in my life, but there is a tool that everybody in my family does not want to agree works. I happen to think works like a charm, and it is about how to solve problems. Now, I've let everybody know for a good long time that I do a channel. It's like a diary. If everybody wanted to conduct themselves the way they did over Christmas, they probably knew Mom's going to blur it all out. So, I'm talking this through. Everybody knows their mother will talk. Everybody knows that I've investigated all of this shit. Everybody knows that I ain't putting up with this crap. My family is important enough, and we need to communicate our issues out, and we need to see the level of manipulation that's going on. We need to understand the problem from all angles, or else everybody's going to walk their own way. It's like, I got nothing to lose. And, you know, when you use this tool and say, okay, what's the best way of solving this problem? Because there ain't no other way of solving this problem. I know for a fact all of my children will go their separate ways, and family will mean nothing. It's already starting. Maybe a lot of people would say, oh, give it time and they grow. No. If you don't get your life in track, if you don't see how you're repeating patterns, because there's cycles of abuse. And if you can't see how to get out of that cycle, it's going to repeat over and over and over again. And I haven't seen anybody around that could tell me how I couldn't break this cycle. So all of this information that's out there in the world that's saying, how do we make a shift? How do we change? How do we actually solve our problems? Because all the help that I've been out there has all told me to cope and deal. Life sucks. Deal with it. Well, as WikiLeaks is reporting, there's a few things wrong in our world. And nobody's going to want to talk about this. But if we don't start solving our problems from within our family, and then within our communities, and then globally, we don't have a chance of hell. And guess what? The corporate world has taken over, and they're using heavy manipulation. There's lots that you need to know. And they work very, very hard at separating family. And divorce is huge, huge business. There's a lot of people making a lot of money to make sure your family experience is hell. It starts off with lawyers. And who are the ones that are making all of these laws up to get Hillary Clinton and all of these corrupt, psychopathic, ruler control people, you know, get away with everything they get away with? A lawyer. They make up the laws, and then they enforce the laws. So, any time that you're going to be involved in a divorce, there's always going to be one winner and one loser. Very, very rarely, unless you're cooperative, which, let's face it, most divorces happen because you can't get along. And if you can't get along, that's when the lawyers show up. But if you can't afford a lawyer, life's hell. That's when it becomes a social issue. And that's when it becomes, taxpayers, you're paying for this shit, so you might want to listen up. The problem that I've gone through had to have cost, maybe $300,000 of taxpayer dollars to get a deadbeat that doesn't pay any child support, works in the oil field, and frankly, the last 2 or 3 years, I've been paying him $100. He's received $100 a month for the child that lived with me up until she was 19, and all that time, I kind of broke because I found out that I can't fight this system. In order to win at this, you got to be a criminal. I'm not a criminal. There's no way I can beat this. And now I'm on a disability, and while welfare is supporting me and my daughter, they also knew that this deadbeat was collecting $100 a month for a couple of years. And that seemed to be okay with our government system. So, technically, you people that pay welfare, not only are you supporting me, which you shouldn't have had to if we actually enforced some laws. I should actually be self-supporting. I had a very good career. I could have done very, very well for myself. And, most people wouldn't have had a problem if there wasn't something really, really wrong within our systems. But there's been lots of problems within our systems. It was all crashing down. It's a matter of time. And it's going to get worse. There is no way every single town has a women's shelter. This is happening to hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of families in Canada. Thousands and thousands per day are going through what I went through. If you multiply all the thousands of people that are getting a divorce, go look up at Statistic Canada and find out how many divorces there are, and find out how many are actually in a court system. If it's in a court system, then if it's a social issue, if there's somebody living, you can't function unless you're in a minimum wage job to the point where you're crippled, if there's a lot of abuse, how many people are on a welfare system? Chances are there's an abusive deadbeat, and there's a lot of emotional abuse. That's heavy manipulation. I've showed you some tapes about how advertising works and manipulates you. Well, there's a lot of that going on. And when there's no way for the situation that resulted, this man was taking me to court without serving me. And once he did it once, he really enjoyed doing it a lot. And I lived in Ontario, he lived in Alberta, and there was no way of being able to fight that. I worked a minimum wage job because I couldn't work in programming with this level of abuse. So I had to take a low-paying job, which was repetitive work, which I didn't have good arms in the first place. And I had to work overtime, I barely making ends meet. And on top of it, having these court orders saying that I owe him child support because while he was going to court, he was letting the courts know that the kids don't live with me, but they always did live with me. So I had to go on a midnight shift and sleep during the day, and while having my daughter. By this time, the children were getting older. There were 2 out on their own. After this court shit started coming up, that's when he started going to court without serving me. Wiped out all his child support where I was owing him money. And so I needed to go to court and stop him because he was nonstop going to court without serving me. So you can't work a job and have your days looking for a lawyer, and there's no lawyer that would ever say that, oh, there's nothing you can do about it. Every single freaking lawyer said there's nothing you can do about it. So then it's a matter of educating yourself in the justice system to be able to stop it, which took over 4 years. By the time I got to court, the judges there, with the level of lies that I had to show up, I ended up getting homeless because I had to use my rent money to go down there. Meanwhile, there's a lot of manipulation going back and forth, which is a long story. I don't want to get into that, but the long story short is no information was presented in a court, which resulted in, all of this attempts, every phone call I made, every politician that I had to phone, every time that I had to go into court, every time he went into court, there were professional people that were getting paid by the hour. That's coming out of your tax dollars. And not only that, the lawyers are there. He can afford lawyers. He was paying, I'm sure, at least $300 an hour for his lawyers. They were hot on the trail. So more money went into lawyers than actual child support that I've ever seen. And yet the end result is in order to play this game, there is also an awful lot of manipulation that goes on. And for tonight, it's so hard to see exactly the manipulation. It took a lot of study to see what's going on. But basically, because we couldn't afford to fly my daughter out, her father could, into the same town that we both live in, she can't spend as much time with her sister because we couldn't afford to fly her out. She was basically paid. She doesn't see it that way. She sees it as, I have an obligation because he paid for the ticket. And it basically boiled down to my daughters won't be able to see each other because one daughter wants to see a movie with her father after spending Christmas Day, Christmas Eve, Boxing Day. I mean, we've had 2 hours with this child since Christmas Eve, and we can't get to see her at all, and apparently we are unreasonable, but there's no manipulation. They were said, the start of the visit was, you shouldn't even bother visiting your mother or your sister because it just won't go well, and it'll probably just be really upsetting, and that you shouldn't bother. So all of a sudden, it ends up to be a 2-hour long argument, me and my daughter trying to work out this problem. So the two of them cared enough about family to say, yeah, this is a sucky situation. But for my daughter, she really wanted to feel important that somebody cared about her. She was even in the hospital with her appendix, and no family members showed up. So it was kind of important for her to make her sister see that she's a little important. Or the other daughter thinks she's just being unreasonable and not understanding that, hey, her father paid for the ticket and she can't exactly get out of anything. So it is really, really fucked up to the point where families going in separate directions. And a lot of people are making an awful lot of money off that to perpetuate these problems. Because while one parent can afford more, he wouldn't be able to afford all that much if he had to pay his support. He would only be able to pay for half, not all. But it's this all and this controlling issue. It's almost psychopathic, where a child is supposed to be strong enough to at least voice their opinion that, hey, I want to feel special, but not able to because they're being bought off. And at the end of the day, it will be that, oh, all of the problems are my fault, and my daughter is really screwed up because she lives with me, because there's this conflict that came up. And they were anticipating this conflict. They more or less knew ahead of time that, yeah, it would be upsetting if they knew how controlling we were. They almost knew that, yeah, they may have a hard time with you spending all the time with us, but you shouldn't spend any time with them because they will be unreasonable to expect a little bit more of a visit. There was supposed to be a couple-hour visit with them tomorrow, but it can be a longer visit because a movie was important. So I think it's personally fucked up, and there is no part of the system that thinks that this is wrong behavior. And it started, I mean, this guy broke so many laws. Going to court without serving somebody, and then lying about where children live, and then lying about your income and not paying income tax. He's trying to tell the courts that he's broke and rents, and I provided the courts with a $300,000 home that he owned, which a $1 million company ended up saying, an oil field company said, oh, we did that landed title was put in his name by mistake. We would have never noticed this big massive error if you didn't find it for us. That house was never his, but we're going to give it to him as a gift. So technically he didn't lie under oath because it was in his documents. And so anyways, that's how they wiped that one out. And my lawyer didn't even let her know that now he's got a $300,000 house and he didn't have to pay income tax on that nice little gift. Lots of income tax is not being paid as well. So if you think that our financial systems can afford to pay for an unjust system, for one, that's creating a welfare system, because if things were fair and I was able to work, and this level of abuse, a constant manipulation, constant false accusations, um, there's so many things, to the point where if my children got off the phone, there was potential for physical violence towards me, which a lot of these children don't even want to admit that they were. But that's how bad things were getting. Is the manipulation is so friggin' powerful that you cannot have a job at the same time, raise kids effectively, and earn a living while battling court all the time. And you think your health is going to last through that? You think you're emotional? This is the game that's played. Then right away people will say, oh, women on welfare are lazy and stupid. You know, and it's like, no, there's no police, there's no justice. I mean, I went to a prosecutor who said this is a victimless crime. So we make laws that have no victims. They're just laws because. And it's costing taxpayer money that you will never ever see the reports. There's billions. When I did the statistic, it was at least $32 billion of unpaid child support in this country, Canada. That number has to have doubled because nobody's bothering to trying to collect child support, and they're leaving women and children, or leaving women and parents. And with this economy going to crash, it's going to be even tougher on families. And it's always going to be the parent that has the most money. So it's more the guys that suffer, because if the women have money, then they draw them, where they can't even live or support themselves. So it's twofold. It's the one with the money that wins, the one who can pay for the best lawyer. And if you don't have that much lawyer, chances are you're the one with the kids. But sometimes if you do have kids with a family that has money, you've lost the battle. Totally. So you are not seeing the financial cost. It's well over $300,000 for my situation. That comes out of taxpayer dollars. Multiply that by thousands, and all of that money is not being reported of how much our ignoring problems cost. But pretty sure lawyers aren't paying their income tax. Pretty sure a lot of these million-dollar companies who are doing everything to get out of paying their child support are not reporting their true income as well. So a lot of wealthy people aren't paying their income tax because they're trying to get out of paying their child support. And you're not going to see those figures. WikiLeaks is not going to report how corrupt this system is. But every MP knows about this and chooses to do nothing. All the medical system, it causes so much stress that your medical systems are making a fortune. There are so many ways our economic system needs to function if our families are destroyed. So there's no tools available for people to work problems out. There's no motivation to even make family important. So that's why I kind of do my channel and say, this is fucked up. And yeah, now my health suffers. I want to smoke all the time. I see this shit go down because I got one daughter that's, creating enough stress that she almost needs her appendix out. And yeah, you may not connect the dots unless you've done the level of research, but a lot of illness is created out of psychological problems that you're dealing with. My daughter wanted to feel special. And she ends up in the hospital. First thing she does when she's in the hospital is trying to phone family, which family doesn't show up. So is she really, how ill is she just because she wants to see family? And my kids have had, coughing up blood ulcers. It's really been a number on their health, my health, and it's like, this shit is screwed up, and people need to start caring about your family and, finding tools to make this work, because this sucks. I'm almost like, I don't give a shit anymore. I really don't give a shit. If family is not important, I am not going to be the blame for everybody else's problems. There are a lot of people that are a hell of a lot more accountable, and I shouldn't have to have a 2-hour argument and then be the blame of that argument and say I'm the one with the problem, and then a society says, hey, you should get your shit together and get out and get a job. This stuff is nothing. You don't know how hard this is on your physical health, and it's costing taxpayers money. So it's like, you got to start doing the right thing. You know what? We have laws for this. We just need to enforce it. But if we did, then that means it'd have to be enforceable for politicians when they get divorced, or lawyers when they get divorced, or law. What it seems to be is who can tell the lie, the best lie. It's not about telling the truth, and that's where I thought perjury. You cannot lie. But I mean, when I even presented evidence to my lawyer, she would even tell the truth. She would be bullshitting half the time, and I'm told not to talk. So it's like, okay, here, I'm admitting to a judge right now that, you know what, I was told that I wasn't allowed to speak. Judges told me that I couldn't speak unless my lawyer spoke to me, and you know what, my lawyers were lying to you. And I ain't going to stick around making complaints all my life. I did that for 9 years. I know nobody's listening to any fucking complaint, and nobody wants to fix it. And at the end of the day, taxpayers pay welfare. Welfare paid child support. Child support was being paid to a deadbeat. That's fucked up. And I'm not to blame for all of these problems. So I speak to every other woman that's kind of lost their mind and has no voice. This one's for you. Peace out.